There are feelings you've carried for years without ever knowing what to call them. Not sadness exactly, not fear, not loneliness in the usual way, something quieter. Like the strange ache you feel when you pass an old street and realize the place is still there, but the life you had inside it is gone. Or that moment in an airport when you look at hundreds of strangers moving past you and suddenly understand that every single one of them is living a story as full and complicated as yours. You know that feeling, the one that arrives for no clear reason, the one you try to explain, then stop halfway because the words sound too small. And here's the strange part. Some of those feelings do have names. Some come from psychology, some come from older languages, some were created by writers trying to give shape to emotions most people recognize, but almost nobody knows how to describe. This video is not just a list of unusual words. It's a way of looking at the hidden weather inside your own life. Because once a feeling has a name, it becomes less foggy, less shapeless, less like something only you have been carrying. You may not have had the word for it, but you knew the feeling. And the first one begins in a place you've probably been before, surrounded by strangers, suddenly realizing none of them are background characters. You're standing in line at a coffee shop. Nothing important is supposed to happen. Someone in front of you is checking their phone. A man near the window keeps turning a paper cup in his hands. A woman by the door looks like she's trying not to cry, but only for half a second. Just long enough for you to notice, not long enough for you to understand why. Then the line moves, and everyone becomes a stranger again. But for a moment, something opens. You realize every person in that room is carrying an entire world you will never enter. Childhood rooms, old arguments, people they miss, bills they haven't paid, songs that still hurt, hopes they would feel embarrassed to say out loud. You've probably felt this before. That sudden awareness that other people are not just passing through your life, they are at the center of their own. That feeling has a name: Sonder. Sonder is the realization that every stranger has a life as vivid, complicated, and emotionally real as yours. And here's what makes it strange. Most of the time, your mind cannot afford to see people fully, so it simplifies them. The cashier becomes the cashier. The driver who cut you off becomes the idiot in traffic. The person walking too slowly in front of you becomes an obstacle, not because you are cruel, because you cannot carry the full humanity of every person you pass. So your mind edits, it reduces, it turns people into roles. Sonder is what happens when, for 1 second, that editing stops. You don't see a stranger anymore. You see a life. If this kind of video helps you put words to things you've carried quietly, leave a like. It helps this reach someone else who may need language for what they feel. And if you want more quiet, thoughtful videos like this, subscribe. Now stay with me, because Sonder has another side. It is not just realizing that strangers have inner worlds. It is realizing that you are also a stranger in someone else's. You may be a background face in a memory someone still carries. Maybe you were the person sitting across from them on the worst day of their life. Maybe you walked past them right before they made a decision they would never forget. Maybe your face appeared for 3 seconds in a moment that mattered deeply to them. And you will never know. That's the ache inside Sonder. You are the main character of your own perception, but so is everyone else. The woman on the train, the old man eating alone, the teenager laughing too loudly on the bus, the person who looked cold when maybe they were just trying not to break. Everyone is carrying more than they show. And once you feel that, even briefly, the world becomes less flat. It doesn't mean you excuse everything people do. It doesn't mean every rude person deserves endless understanding. But it can soften the first judgment. It can create a small pause before you turn someone into a category. The person who didn't text back may not be careless. The stranger who looked distant may just be protected. The coworker who seemed cold may be fighting something invisible. You don't know the whole story. That's the point. Sonder gives you humility without asking you to disappear. It reminds you that your life matters deeply to you, and someone else's life matters just as deeply to them. For a second, the world gets bigger, and you get smaller, but not in a bad way, in a human way. And maybe that's why the feeling stays with you, because it reminds you that every face you pass belongs to someone who is also trying to survive their own private weather. But Sonder is only the first door, because sometimes the feeling is not about strangers at all. Sometimes it is about a place you used to know, a home, a street, a season of your life, that still exists somewhere in the world, but no longer exists in the way your heart remembers it. You drive past a street you used to know. Maybe you didn't even plan to go there. Maybe traffic forced you that way. Maybe you were visiting someone, or taking a shortcut, or just following the map without thinking too much about it. Then you see it. The old house, the corner store, the school fence, the driveway where someone used to wait for you. And for a second, your body reacts before your mind catches up. You feel something pull. Not exactly sadness, not exactly nostalgia, something deeper than memory. Because the strange part is this: the place is still there, the street still exists, the walls may still be standing, the trees may even be taller now. Technically, nothing has vanished. But something is gone, and you know it. That feeling has a name: Hiraeth. Hiraeth is often described as a deep longing for home, but not just any home. It is the ache for a home you cannot truly return to. A place, a time, a feeling, or even a version of your life that no longer exists in the way you remember it. You may be able to go back physically, but you cannot go back emotionally. That's the wound inside it. You can stand in front of the same house and still feel like you arrived too late. You can visit the same beach, the same neighborhood, the same city, and realize the thing you missed was never just the location. It was the atmosphere, the people, the innocence, the version of you who didn't know how temporary everything was. A place can still exist and still be gone. That is Hiraeth. And you've probably felt it in smaller ways too. You open an old photo and suddenly remember a version of your life that felt ordinary when you were living it. A messy room, a group of people sitting around a table, a summer evening that nobody knew would become important, someone laughing in the background who is no longer in your life. At the time, it was just a day. Now it feels like a doorway you can't walk through anymore. Here's what I want you to notice. Hiraeth is not only about missing the past. Sometimes what you miss is who you were before the past became the past. You miss the person who believed certain things would last. You miss the lightness you had before responsibility got heavier. You miss the way a room felt when everyone was still there, before distance, silence, aging, conflict, or time changed the shape of everything. And that is why it hurts differently. Regular nostalgia says, "That was nice." Hiraeth says, "Something in me still lives there." Stay with that for a second, because it explains why going back often doesn't fix the feeling. You think, maybe if I visit that place again, I'll feel it. Maybe if I call that person. Maybe if I listen to that song. Maybe if I look through those pictures. And sometimes you do feel something. But it is not the same, because you are not the same person returning. The place may have changed, but so have you. That is the part people rarely say out loud. You are not only grieving what disappeared outside of you, you are grieving the version of yourself that could only exist in that moment, with those people, under those conditions, before you knew what you know now. Sometimes the home you miss is not a building. It is a state of being. It is the feeling of being younger without realizing you were young, safe without realizing you were safe, surrounded without realizing one day you would look back and count those moments as rare. That's why Hiraeth can appear even when nothing tragic happened. No disaster, no dramatic ending, no single moment where everything broke. Life simply moved forward. And somehow, that was enough. Someone moved away. A family changed. A friendship thinned out. A street was rebuilt. A childhood room became storage. A voice you used to hear every day became a memory you have to work to recall. Nothing exploded, but the world quietly rearranged itself, and you were expected to keep living inside the new version. That is why this feeling is so hard to explain. Because how do you grieve something that technically still exists? How do you tell someone, I miss a place I can still visit? How do you say, I miss a life that was never perfect, but it was mine in a way nothing else has been? You may not say it, but your body remembers. It remembers the street, the smell of that room, the sound of someone walking through the house, the exact kind of evening light that used to fall across the floor. And then, years later, some small thing brings it back. A song in a grocery store, a smell after rain, a photo you forgot was saved on your phone. Suddenly you are not where you are. You are there. Not fully. Just enough to ache. But Hiraeth also gives you something. It proves that you have loved a place, a season, or a version of life deeply enough for it to leave a mark. The ache is painful because something mattered. The longing exists because some part of you recognized home, even if only for a while. And once you understand that, the feeling becomes less confusing. You are not weak for missing what cannot return. You are human for having belonged somewhere, sometime, in a way that time could not preserve. But there is another feeling that can be even more disorienting. Because sometimes the ache is not for a place you lost. Sometimes it is for a person you barely even have. A message, a glance, a delay in response. A tiny sign that your mind turns into a whole story. And that is where the next feeling begins. You check your phone. Nothing. You place it face down on the table, like that will somehow make you care less. You try to continue your day. You answer an email. You walk into another room. Then, a few minutes later, you check again. Still nothing. And the strange part is not just that you want a message. It's that your mind has already started building an entire emotional universe around the absence of one. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're losing interest. Maybe you said too much. Maybe you didn't say enough. You know this feeling. It is not ordinary attraction. It is the kind of fixation that makes a small signal feel enormous. A glance, a pause, a like, a message that comes too late. And suddenly, your whole body is listening for proof. That feeling has a name, limerence. Limerence is an intense, involuntary state of romantic obsession, usually built around one question. Do they feel it too? That is the part most people misunderstand. Limerence is not just wanting someone. It is wanting certainty from someone who has not given it to you. That uncertainty becomes the fuel. A clear answer would end the loop, but a half answer keeps it alive. A warm moment followed by distance. A long conversation followed by silence. A look that felt meaningful, but was never explained. Your mind hates that gap. So it tries to close it. It replays. It analyzes. It searches for evidence. And when the evidence is incomplete, almost anything can become meaningful. A starving mind can turn crumbs into a feast. That is limerence. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Sometimes limerence feels like love because it is intense. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Intensity can come from uncertainty. Intimacy comes from knowing. That distinction matters. Because real love becomes clearer as you know the person more deeply. Limerence often becomes stronger when you know less, because your mind has more empty space to fill. You are not only attracted to the person, you are attracted to the possibility. The version of them your mind is building in the dark. Stay with me here. This does not mean your feelings are fake. The emotion is real. The longing is real. The rush when they reply is real. But the story around the feeling may not be complete. That is where people get trapped. They mistake emotional activation for emotional truth. They think, if I feel this strongly, it must mean something. Maybe it does. But maybe it means your nervous system has found a question it cannot stop trying to answer. Does this person want me? Did I matter to them? Was that moment real? Am I imagining this? Limerence turns another person into a locked door, and every tiny sign feels like a possible key. This is why it can feel addictive, not because you are weak, because intermittent reassurance is one of the strongest hooks the mind can experience. Warmth, then distance. Hope, then doubt. Closeness, then confusion. The pattern keeps you reaching. And the most painful part is that you may not even miss the person exactly. You may miss the feeling you hoped they would confirm in you. That you are wanted. That you are chosen. That someone sees something in you they do not see in everyone else. That is a very human hunger. But if you are not careful, you can hand someone the power to regulate your entire sense of worth when they never agreed to carry it. Here's the practical part. When you feel limerence pulling you into analysis, ask one clean question. What do I actually know and what am I filling in? Not what do I hope? Not what do I fear? Not what would make the story feel better? What do I actually know? That question will not kill the feeling immediately, but it separates reality from projection. And that separation is where your freedom begins. You can feel attraction without surrendering your mind. You can want someone without letting a delayed message decide whether your day has value. Limerence is not something to hate yourself for. It is something to recognize. Because once you can name it, you can stop treating every emotional rush as a revelation. Sometimes it is not love speaking. Sometimes it is uncertainty wearing perfume. And that brings us to a different kind of feeling. Because not every strange emotion comes from wanting someone. Some come from places, rooms, buildings, hallways, spaces that were built to be full of life, but now feel almost haunted by the absence of it. You check your phone. Nothing. You place it face down on the table, like that will somehow make you care less. You try to continue your day. You answer an email. You walk into another room. Then, a few minutes later, you check again. Still nothing. And the strange part is not just that you want a message. It's that your mind has already started building an entire emotional universe around the absence of one. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're losing interest. Maybe you said too much. Maybe you didn't say enough. You know this feeling. It is not ordinary attraction. It is the kind of fixation that makes a small signal feel enormous. A glance. A pause. A like. A message that comes too late. And suddenly, your whole body is listening for proof. That feeling has a name. Limerence. Limerence is an intense, involuntary state of romantic obsession, usually built around one question. Do they feel it too? That is the part most people misunderstand. Limerence is not just wanting someone. It is wanting certainty from someone who has not given it to you. That uncertainty becomes the fuel. A clear answer would end the loop, but a half answer keeps it alive. A warm moment followed by distance. A long conversation followed by silence. A look that felt meaningful, but was never explained. Your mind hates that gap. So it tries to close it. It replays. It analyzes. It searches for evidence. And when the evidence is incomplete, almost anything can become meaningful. A starving mind can turn crumbs into a feast. That is limerence. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Sometimes limerence feels like love because it is intense. But intensity is not the same as intimacy. Intensity can come from uncertainty. Intimacy comes from knowing. That distinction matters. Because real love becomes clearer as you know the person more deeply. Limerence often becomes stronger when you know less, because your mind has more empty space to fill. You are not only attracted to the person, you are attracted to the possibility. The version of them your mind is building in the dark. Stay with me here. This does not mean your feelings are fake. The emotion is real. The longing is real. The rush when they reply is real. But the story around the feeling may not be complete. That is where people get trapped. They mistake emotional activation for emotional truth. They think, if I feel this strongly, it must mean something. Maybe it does. But maybe it means your nervous system has found a question it cannot stop trying to answer. Does this person want me? Did I matter to them? Was that moment real? Am I imagining this? Limerence turns another person into a locked door, and every tiny sign feels like a possible key. This is why it can feel addictive, not because you are weak. Because intermittent reassurance is one of the strongest hooks the mind can experience. Warmth, then distance. Hope, then doubt. Closeness, then confusion. The pattern keeps you reaching. And the most painful part is that you may not even miss the person exactly. You may miss the feeling you hoped they would confirm in you. That you are wanted. That you are chosen. That someone sees something in you they do not see in everyone else. That is a very human hunger. But if you are not careful, you can hand someone the power to regulate your entire sense of worth when they never agreed to carry it. Here's the practical part. When you feel limerence pulling you into analysis, ask one clean question. What do I actually know, and what am I filling in? Not what do I hope. Not what do I fear. Not what would make the story feel better. What do I actually know? That question will not kill the feeling immediately, but it separates reality from projection. And that separation is where your freedom begins. You can feel attraction without surrendering your mind. You can want someone without letting a delayed message decide whether your day has value. Limerence is not something to hate yourself for. It is something to recognize. Because once you can name it, you can stop treating every emotional rush as a revelation. Sometimes it is not love speaking. Sometimes it is uncertainty wearing perfume. And that brings us to a different kind of feeling. Because not every strange emotion comes from wanting someone. Some come from places, rooms, buildings, hallways, spaces that were built to be full of life, but now feel almost haunted by the absence of it. You walk into a school during summer break. The lights are on, the hallways are clean, the doors are still there, the lockers are lined up exactly where they should be. But something feels off. Not dangerous, just off. Because everything about that place was built for noise, footsteps, voices, lockers closing, someone laughing too loudly, a bell cutting through the air. Now it is silent, and the silence does not feel empty in a normal way. It feels like absence. That feeling has a name, kenopsia. Kenopsia is the strange, eerie atmosphere of a place that is usually full of life, but is now empty. A mall after closing. A stadium after the crowd leaves. An office building late at night. The chairs are still there. The signs are still there. The structure is still waiting for people. But the people are gone. That is what makes it unsettling. An empty field does not usually feel like kenopsia, because it was not built around human presence. But an empty classroom does, an empty theater does, an empty airport terminal does, because in places like that, you are not just noticing that no one is there. You are feeling where people should be. That is the value of the word. Kenopsia names the emotional weight of absence. It is not a ghost story. It is expectation. Your mind knows what the space is supposed to hold. And when that life is missing, the place feels unfinished. A school without students is not just quiet. It is waiting. A stadium without a crowd is not just empty. It is echoing. Kenopsia is the feeling of walking into a pause that was never meant to last. And once you understand that, you begin to notice something. Places are not just backgrounds. They carry emotional memory. A room can remember laughter. A hallway can remember footsteps. A chair can feel strange because someone is no longer sitting in it. The space did not change much, but the presence did. And your body can feel the difference before your mind explains it. Now compare that to another feeling. It is raining hard outside. Not soft rain, a real storm. The kind that hits the windows loudly enough to make the world feel far away. The street is wet, the sky is dark. Going outside would be miserable. But you are inside. Warm, dry, safe. Maybe there is a lamp on, maybe a blanket, maybe nothing special at all. Just the simple fact that the storm cannot reach you. And something in your body relaxes. That feeling has a name, chrysalism. Chrysalism is the quiet comfort of being indoors during a storm. But it is not really about rain. It is about contrast. The outside world feels chaotic, cold, demanding, unreachable. The inside world feels smaller, softer, contained. For once, you are not expected to go anywhere. The weather gives you permission to stop. That is why rain can feel comforting when you are safely behind a window. The storm creates a boundary. It turns your room into a shelter. And shelter is different from escape. Escape is running away from life. Shelter is having one place where life cannot reach you all at once. That distinction matters. Sometimes what you need is not a solution. Sometimes what you need is a room, a storm outside, and one quiet hour where nothing can demand anything from you. Kenopsia and chrysalism are opposites in a strange way. Kenopsia is the discomfort of absence. Chrysalism is the comfort of distance. One says, life should be here, but it is gone. The other says, life is out there, but for now, it cannot reach me. And both reveal the same truth. Your environment is speaking to your nervous system all the time. You step into an empty hallway and feel like you are trespassing in a memory. You hear rain against the glass and your shoulders drop. That is not random. Your body reads places before your mind gives them names. But some feelings do not come from empty rooms or storms. Some come from objects that have survived other people's lives. A used book, a handwritten note, an old photograph, a city street from a decade you never lived in. And that is where the next feeling begins. You pick up a used book. There is nothing special about it at first. Just a worn cover, a few bent pages, maybe a name written inside the front. But then you notice something. A sentence underlined in pencil, a folded corner, a receipt being used as a bookmark, a small note in the margin, written by someone you will never meet. And suddenly the book feels different. Not valuable in the expensive sense. Valuable because it has already belonged to a life. Someone carried it. Someone opened it on a train, or beside a bed, or during a season when that one underlined sentence meant enough to mark it. Then, for whatever reason, they let it go. Now it is in your hands. That atmosphere has a name, Velliker. Velliker is the strange, quiet feeling of old bookshops and second-hand stores, places filled with objects that have already passed through other people's stories. And here's what makes it powerful. A new object belongs mostly to the future. A used object carries evidence of the past. You don't know the whole story, but you can feel that there was one. That is why used bookshops feel different from regular stores. The shelves are not just full of products, they are full of traces. Books someone loved, books someone abandoned, books someone meant to finish, books that survived moves, breakups, deaths, new apartments, new versions of people. Every object has an invisible before. That is the feeling. Velliker is not heavy sadness. It is softer than that. It is the awareness that life leaves fingerprints on ordinary things. A handwritten note. A jacket in a thrift store. A record with someone's name on the sleeve. A photograph found inside a box nobody has opened in years. These things remind you that people pass through the world and leave pieces of themselves behind. Not always big pieces. Sometimes just a crease in a page. But there is another feeling close to this one, and it can be even stranger. You see an old photo from a time before you were born. A street in the 1970s. A family standing in front of a car. People in clothes that now look cinematic. A diner glowing at night. A city before the billboards changed. A beach with colors faded by film. And for some reason, you miss it. But you were never there. That feeling has a name. Anemoia. Anemoia is nostalgia for a time you have never known. It does not make logical sense at first. How can you miss a decade you never lived in? How can you feel longing for a world that was never yours? But your mind is this all the time. It takes fragments and builds a feeling. Old photos, home videos, music from another era, stories from people who were there, movies that make the past look warmer than it probably was. And then your imagination fills the gaps. This is the part worth noticing. You are not really seeing the past. You are seeing what survived from it. The beautiful photos, the memorable songs, the scenes people recorded, the moments someone thought were worth keeping. You are not seeing the boredom, the fear, the ordinary stress, the bad days, the things people at the time were desperate to escape. The past looks simpler when you only see the beautiful parts. That is the hidden trap of anemoia. It makes another time feel like a home you lost, even though you never lived there. But often, what you are longing for is not the actual past. You are longing for a feeling, slowness, belonging, texture. A world that seems less crowded by noise. A life that appears more physical, more present, less constantly interrupted. So here is the practical question. Am I missing the past? Or am I missing what I imagine the past would give me? That question matters. Because sometimes anemoia is not really about history. It is about hunger. A hunger for simplicity, for beauty, for a life that feels less digital, for memories that look more meaningful than the ones you are making now. And that can be useful if you listen carefully. Instead of worshiping a time you never lived in, you can ask what your longing is trying to show you. Maybe you need more silence. Maybe you need more real objects around you. Maybe you need fewer screens. Maybe you need to create days that are worth remembering, instead of only consuming evidence that other people once had them. Bellicor and anemoia both point to the same quiet truth. The past has a strange power over the human mind. But not because it was always better. Because it is unreachable. And unreachable things are easy to romanticize. A used book feels meaningful because someone touched it before you. An old photograph feels magical because you can see the moment, but you cannot enter it. That distance creates the ache. You are close enough to feel something, too far away to have it. And maybe that is why these feelings stay with us. They remind us that time is not just something we move through. It is something we keep trying to touch after it has already moved on. But not every nameless feeling comes from the past. Sometimes the strange ache happens in the present. You are in the room. People are talking. Nothing is obviously wrong. And still, some quiet part of you feels like you do not belong there. You're in a room where nothing is technically wrong. People are talking. Someone laughs at the right moment. The conversation moves easily from one person to another. Everyone seems to know the rhythm. You smile. You answer when someone speaks to you. You look normal from the outside. But inside, there is a quiet distance. Not panic. Not rejection. Just the feeling that you are slightly misplaced. Like everyone else found the frequency of the room, and you are close to it, but not quite tuned in. You know this feeling. That feeling has a name. Monachopsis. Monachopsis is the subtle, persistent sense of being out of place. And what makes it hard to explain is that nothing obvious has to happen. No one insults you. No one excludes you. No one tells you to leave. You may even be welcomed. But still, some part of you feels like you are performing belonging instead of actually feeling it. That is the difference. Loneliness is painful because you are alone. Monochopsis is strange because you may be surrounded. You are in the group but not fully of it. And here's the part worth noticing. Sometimes the room is not rejecting you. Sometimes your nervous system simply cannot relax there. That matters. Because when people feel out of place, they usually blame themselves first. They think, why can't I just be normal? Why does this feel so easy for everyone else? What am I missing? Why do I always feel like I'm watching life through glass? But maybe nothing is wrong with you. Maybe the environment requires a version of you that costs too much to maintain. That is the hidden exhaustion of monochopsis. It is not always the pain of being disliked. It is the fatigue of translating yourself. You choose your words more carefully. You laugh half a second late. You hold back the thought that would be too honest. You become slightly edited. And the more edited you become, the farther away you feel. That is why fitting in can still feel lonely. Because being accepted as a performance is not the same as being known. Stay with that. The real ache of monochopsis is not just, I don't belong here. It is, where could I go where I would not have to reduce myself to be understood? That question can follow a person for years. Through friendships, jobs, churches, families, relationships, cities. You keep looking for the room where your presence does not feel like a translation. And when you find even a small version of it, one conversation, one person, one place where your shoulders drop, you notice immediately. Because belonging has a physical feeling. Your body stops bracing. Your mind stops rehearsing. Your words come out with less effort. That is how you know. So here is the practical part. The next time you feel out of place, do not rush to shame yourself. Ask a better question. Am I uncomfortable because I need to grow, or because I am shrinking to survive this room? Those are very different things. Growth stretches you. Shrinking erases you. And learning the difference can save you years of forcing yourself into places that only like the smaller version of you. Monochopsis does not mean you should leave every room that feels uncomfortable. Sometimes you need courage. Sometimes you need practice. Sometimes you need to stop hiding. But sometimes the discomfort is information. Not every room is yours. Not every group is home. Not every place that accepts you can actually hold you. And there is nothing immature about admitting that, because the goal is not to belong everywhere. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself just to belong somewhere. That is monochopsis. The ache of being present, but not at home. And there is another feeling closely connected to it. Because sometimes you do find people who want to be close to you. They invite you in. They reach out. They care. And somehow, without fully understanding why, you still push them away. Someone invites you out. A friend. A person who cares. Someone who has done nothing wrong. And before you even understand why, something in you tightens. You say, I'm tired. You say, maybe next time. You say, I've just been busy. And technically, none of that is a lie. But it is not the whole truth either. Because part of you wants to go. Part of you wants to be close. To be seen. To be included. To stop feeling like you are watching life happen from a distance. But another part of you builds a wall before anyone can get too near. That feeling has a name, Mauerbohr-Traurigkeit. It roughly means the sadness of the wall builder. The urge to push people away, even when you do not really want to be alone. And this is what makes it painful. The distance protects you. Then it punishes you. At first, Saying no feels like relief. No pressure, no effort, no risk of being misunderstood, drained, disappointed, rejected, or exposed. You get your quiet. But then the quiet changes. It stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling empty. You chose distance, but now distance feels like abandonment. That is the trap. You built the wall. Then you felt lonely behind it. And if you've ever been there, you know how hard it is to explain. Because how do you complain about isolation when you were the one who declined the invitation? How do you say, "I miss people," when you keep making it difficult for them to reach you? Here's the part worth noticing. Not every wall is arrogance. Some walls are old protection. Maybe at some point, closeness became expensive. Maybe being available meant being drained. Maybe trusting people meant being disappointed. Maybe you learned that needing others gave them too much power. So now, even safe people can feel like a threat. Not because they are dangerous. Because closeness itself has started to feel risky. That is the hidden mechanism. You are not always avoiding people. Sometimes you are avoiding the vulnerability that comes with being reachable. And the practical question is simple. What am I protecting myself from right now? Not what excuse am I using. What am I protecting myself from? Being judged. Being needed. Being disappointed. Being seen too clearly. Having to explain why I am not okay. That question matters because it separates solitude from avoidance. Solitude restores you. Avoidance slowly shrinks your life. Solitude says, I need to come back to myself. Avoidance says, I cannot risk being touched by anyone. Those are not the same, and you can feel the difference afterward. Real solitude leaves you more whole. Avoidance leaves you more separate. So the answer is not to force yourself into every plan, answer every message instantly, or become available to everyone. That would only create another kind of prison. The mature move is smaller. Let one safe person come a little closer than your reflex wants to allow. Send the honest sentence. I've been distant lately, but it's not because I don't care. Or, I want to see you, I'm just having a hard time getting out of my own head. Simple. No performance. No long explanation. Just a door left slightly open. Because sometimes healing does not begin with a dramatic confession. Sometimes it begins when you stop pretending the wall is the same thing as peace. Lauerbor Trurigkeit is the sadness of wanting connection and fearing the cost of it. It is the ache of being protected and trapped by the same habit. And once you can name it, you can start noticing the exact moment the wall begins to rise. That moment matters. Because before the wall is fully built, you still have a choice. You can disappear again. Or you can let someone see one honest inch of you. But there is another feeling even larger than this. It does not come from a room, a person, or a memory. It comes from suddenly realizing how small your one life is compared to everything you will never know, never see, and never become. You look out the window of a plane. Below you, there are cities you will never walk through, roads you will never take, houses filled with people you will never meet, millions of lives happening at the same time as yours, completely outside your reach. And for a moment, your own life feels very small. Not meaningless, just small. That feeling has a name, oculism. Oculism is the awareness of how limited your own perspective is compared to the vastness of everything else. You know your memories, your problems, your regrets, your version of what happened. But that is not the whole world. It is just the part you were standing in. And that can be humbling, because so much of what feels enormous inside your mind is, from a distance, one tiny moment in one tiny life, on one tiny planet. The argument you replayed for 3 days. The mistake you still cringe about. The thing you said wrong. The version of you someone misunderstood. It matters, But it is not the entire universe. That is the strange comfort of occultism. It does not erase your pain. It puts it back into scale. Sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need to remember that your mind can turn one room, one conversation, one failure, one rejection into the whole world. But it is not the whole world. It is one window, and there are countless others. But then comes another feeling, a heavier one, because once you realize how vast everything is, you also realize something else. You will only live one life, one body, one timeline, one set of choices, one path that becomes real while every other path stays imagined. That feeling has a name, onism. Onism is the frustration of being stuck in just one life, unable to experience all the others you can imagine. And the modern world makes this feeling sharper. You can watch someone living in a cabin in the mountains, someone building a business in New York, someone raising children by the ocean, someone traveling through countries you may never visit, someone living a quiet life that looks simpler than yours, someone living a bold life that makes yours feel too small. Every version is visible now, and every visible version quietly reminds you of the lives you are not living. That is the ache of onism. Every choice gives you something, but every choice also closes something. The city you chose means other cities became unlived. The person you became means other versions of you stayed possible, but unreal. The life you built is real because other lives were not. That is not failure. That is finitude. And here is the part that matters. The answer to onism is not to live every life. You cannot. The answer is to stop sleepwalking through the one life you actually have. Ask yourself, what part of my one life am I actually choosing? Not what are you scrolling through. Not what are you envying. Not what version of yourself are you imagining at midnight. What are you choosing? Because your life will always be limited. But limited does not mean empty. A frame is what makes a picture visible. A life has meaning partly because it cannot be everything. If you could live every possible version, none of them would carry weight. Onism hurts because your choices matter. And that is also what makes them sacred. So maybe the point is not to stop wondering about the lives you will never live. Maybe the point is to let that awareness wake you up inside the life you are living. Call the person. Take the walk. Make the thing. Pay attention to the room you are actually in. Because one day, this ordinary day may become one of the moments you wish you had inhabited more fully. Occultism reminds you that you are small. Onism reminds you that your one small life is still the only one you get to touch from the inside. And that brings us to the final question. What do we do with all these feelings once we finally have names for them? So what do you do with a feeling once you finally have a name for it? You don't magically fix it. That is the first thing to understand. A name does not erase longing. It does not remove loneliness. It does not make uncertainty disappear. It does not give you back the place, the person, the time, or the version of life you lost. But it does something important. It gives shape to what used to be fog. And that matters. Because unnamed feelings have a way of spreading through your life. They hide behind moods. They become silence, distraction, irritation, overthinking, nostalgia, or that strange heaviness you carry without knowing where it came from. Then one day, a word finds it. And the feeling is still there. But it is no longer shapeless. That is the quiet power of language. It does not always heal the wound, but it helps you see where the wound is. And once you can see it, you can stop mistaking it for everything. You can feel Hiraeth without believing your best life is behind you. You can feel Limerence without handing your peace to someone's silence. You can feel monachopsis without deciding you are broken. You can feel onism without wasting the one life you actually have, grieving every life you cannot live. That is the practical part. Naming a feeling creates a small space between you and the emotion. Not a cold distance, a useful one, the kind of space where you can say, "This is what I'm feeling," not, "This is who I am." The difference can save you, because you are not every ache that passes through you. You are not every strange sadness. You are not every moment of longing, obsession, displacement, nostalgia, or existential weight. You are the one noticing it. And sometimes that is where freedom begins. Not in controlling everything you feel, but in recognizing it clearly enough that it no longer controls the whole room. Maybe that is why these words stay with us. Because deep down, we do not only want solutions, we want recognition. We want someone to say, "Yes, that thing you feel is real. Other people have felt it too. It has a shape. It has a name." There is comfort in that. A quiet kind. The kind that does not make life simple, but makes it less lonely. And maybe that is enough for tonight. Maybe the next time you pass a stranger, you will remember that every face has a hidden world behind it. Maybe the next time you miss a place that no longer feels like itself, you will understand that you are not just missing the place. Maybe the next time you feel pulled toward a life you cannot live, you will return more gently to the life in front of you. Because this is the strange truth. A name does not give the feeling power. The feeling already had power. A name gives you a way to hold it, and some feelings become less frightening when you can finally hold them without pretending they are not there. So if one of these words describes something you have carried quietly, leave a comment and tell me which one it was. Subscribe if you want more calm, thoughtful videos like this. And if this video reminded you of someone, share it with them. They may need a word for something they have never been able to explain. Because there are still many feelings we live with every day, quietly waiting for language.